If I could ask you to become recording secretary for tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, to cover for Valerie. So calling to order the Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, Ashford Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, regular meeting. Again, about 7:03, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
And first off, before we do the seating of the alternates, I would just like to make a mention. I know we haven't met for a while and this didn't delay anything, but by now, many of you are well aware of the passing of Beverly Ferentz from the town offices. Bev passed away on September 14th. As many of you have probably read also in the Ashford Citizen, Bev was greatly admired, appreciated, and held a very special place in the heart of not just her friends and family, but also her co-workers in the town office building. She was there for 40 years in various capacities, and most recently was the clerk for the land use office in supporting the zoning enforcement officer, the wetlands agent officer, and the building official, along with the associated boards to that group. I am not going to pretend that I could be any more eloquent than her coworkers were in the write-up. I urge you to take a look at the Citizen, and we should all be so lucky to be remembered in such a nice way. So I ask for a moment of silence in Bev's memory, and we'll resume the meeting after that. Okay, I thank everyone for their time and respect. And again, Bev will be sorely missed. Going to the seating of alternates. It looks like, let's see, I don't see Doug is on. It looks like Valerie's joined us, Alex, so you're off the hook.
All right.
Hello, Valerie.
Hi there.
Okay, thank you for joining.
I couldn't get in until just a second ago.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay, well, we're glad you were tenacious and got in. Thank you very much. So the one member we are missing is Jerry. Excuse me, we're missing Jerry and Catherine Sampson. So seating for tonight, we'll do our two alternates. Bruce, you'll seat for Jerry Dufresne, and Tom Hastings will seat for Catherine Sampson. You got that, Valerie?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Also, as guests joining us tonight, we've got, I see Paul Varga. Hi, Paul. And Mr. Gregory McCracken with one of the applicants. So thank you, and we will get to your items as quickly as possible. Review of the minutes from the July 13th, 2020. Wow, it's been that long. Wow. July 13th, 2020 regular meeting. Any comments, any input, or any movement to accept?
Move to accept.
Dick Williams, move to accept. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Alex seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? And again, those who were not at the meeting in July, if you can remember back that far, we ask you to abstain from that, but I think we were all in attendance on that. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. The motion passes. We open up to public comment to anyone in the group that wishes to speak. Anything from you, Paul? Nothing tonight? Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Just here to listen for a while. I've actually got another meeting in 20 minutes, so I'm going to listen
Okay.
as long as I can.
Okay, no pressure. Fine, no pressure. I notice you're not on your tractor outside right now. I don't know why.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And I'm actually happy about that it's raining, which is a change for me.
Well,
Usually I'm not happy when it rains.
Yeah, aren't we all though?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Think you'll get
Thank you.
another crop of hay?
No, probably not. I'm hoping that what we have out there turns a little green with this rain, and I'll be at least a little pleased. But it's been a terrible summer for that.
Okay, Bill, Alex, any bills to present?
No bills.
No bills, thank you. Okay, as for correspondence, I have 2 items. One was a brief email from Brian Griffiths, and Mike in his took the initiative. Mike Motto took the initiative to respond back to Mr. Griffiths. Mr. Griffiths was from July. I'm sorry, the dog is in here with me. I should kick him out. From July, excuse me, August 1st. It was August 1st, 2020. No, I'm sorry. His was July 25th, and then there was a response to him. His subject is processing. We were subject to excessive environmental noise all day Friday, July 24th, 2020. Numerous pieces of heavy equipment running as well as the crusher. Now we know that it is right because 6 people gave him that right 50 months ago. But is it right to do such a project just so he can walk easily, as he stated in his August 2018 agricultural plan? When is this nonsense going to end? Have a good day. We're not. Brian Griffiths. And on August 1st, Mike responded back, Brian, I'm acknowledging receipt of your email dated 7/25. As I have mentioned before, because the town was actively pending litigation related to this operation you described, we are limited to the information we are able to provide. Furthermore, this litigation limits any action we can take in an absence of a court decision. Thank you, Mike. And Mike sent that on to me, and I approved the response back. I have since, at the end of September, finally got a response from Ken Slater just for an update that it looks like the courts are starting to open up in various capacities. They actually have a conference, whether it's a Zoom conference or in person, I'm not sure, but a conference on this issue that's scheduled for, I believe he said November 6th. However, his hope is to bring the parties together sooner, possibly have a conference with the clerk and get things moving along with this so that we have the information, have the stipulated arrangement in place and moving forward as we planned. Just as an aside on this, I expect no delay on this. There was nothing that hampered the activity that should have been taking place, so I expect there not to be any type of request for extension or anything. Let me put it this way. If we do get a request for extension, I am all for, but of course this would come to the commission, I am all for not granting any type of extension on this. Again, there were no limitations.
Yeah,
But-
Jeff, I think we had voted on that in a, a private session to not grant any extension. So,
Right, right. So again, I think we'll hear more from Ken as this develops in the next couple of weeks. And as soon as I hear something, we'll get something out to the crowd, the commission. The other correspondence we received was from Ms. Kay Warren at 31 Amadon Drive. It was to Jeffrey Silversmith, Chairman, Planning and Zoning, Ashford. As of August 28th, she sent this. Dear Jeffrey, regarding Article 2, Section 2, Ashford Town Ordinance, Nonconforming Uses, Structures and Lots. This is a formal complaint. My neighbor at 33 Amadon Drive, Tracy Smith, put a large barricade on the boundary line between our 2 properties without my permission. I was never notified of this action by my neighbor or the town of Ashford, and I believe I should have been before such action was undertaken or allowed. I know there are setbacks and other zoning rules being ignored and or violated, as well as inland wetlands rules and violations for proximity to the lake, i.e. proximity to the water, as well as no silt fencing or hay bales to mediate runoff during construction. Most recently, they have brought the barricade within approximately 3 feet of the water line, and it is now blocking the view of the lake from my kitchen, living room windows, and also my patio that I've had for 44 years. I am sure this is a violation of town zoning regulation, and I am told by neighbors that on other properties on the lake, this was not allowed unless abutting properties were notified by certified mail of the project and neighbors were in agreement that the project could have moved forward. I believe that this action of my neighbor will also cause my property value to decline since I no longer have a view of the lake. I would like to know, what is the town going to do about this? As you know, I am a senior citizen and the hostility and stress of this situation is becoming a problem for me. I would like to get this issue settled in town if possible without having to take any legal action against any and all parties involved. I appreciate your help in resolving this matter. Thank you, Kay Warren. And this also went to Catherine Silversmith, the first selectman, Bill Folletti, the selectman, Kara Fishman, assessor, and Carrie Tarpey, attorney at law. My guess is Ms. Tarpey is her attorney. I formulated a response to her letter after some input and some putting my head together with Mike and what had been dealt with previously in the summer regarding this issue. Dear Kay, thank you for your letter of August 28th. As access to the town office building is limited and our September 14th, 2020 regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission was canceled, this was not brought to my attention until September 15th, 2020. In consultation with the zoning enforcement officer, Michael D'Amato, who indicated to me that you had discussed this issue with him earlier in the summer, we are in agreement that there is no actionable zoning issue for the Planning and Zoning Commission to move forward on in regard to your complaint. The zoning regulation you have indicated, Article 2, Section 7, non-conforming uses, structures, and lots, does not specifically indicate fences as a non-conforming structure, and its application is in reference to buildings, sheds, and other such structures indicated as non-conforming or the lot itself. Furthermore, if you would reference Article 5A, Section 3(1), exemptions of the Ashford Planning and Zoning Regulations, of the Ashford zoning regulations, you will see that the fences or walls of no more than 6 feet in height are exempt from any zoning permit requirement and do not have any precedent for the requirement of such a permit for construction. As for the inland wetlands requirements and potential violations you indicate, this issue does not fall under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it has been indicated to me that a wetlands permit was granted for the construction of the fence in its current proximity to the lakefront. Regarding the effect on your property value, that is an issue for the Ashford Town's Assessor's Office when assessing the value of your property for tax purposes, and better handled by that office or the Board of Assessment Appeals. The only advice I can offer to you is to approach the Lake Chaffee Association regarding any rules or requirements they might have in reference to fences, line of sight, or view restrictions. Again, thank you for your correspondence and be well. Sincerely, Jeff Silversmith, Planning and Zoning Chair. I also did speak with Ms. Warren directly and just added the advice of attending the last Inland Wetlands Commission meeting, and which she did do, and did have some representation there from the Lake Association. So it's being handled what seems like in the proper venues now, but again, did not fall under an actionable item for planning and zoning. Any questions on that? It's supposed to count to 13, I was told. Okay, thank you very much. All right, this is going to turn into the, well, probably, I'm guessing the Mike and Dick show, but under unfinished business, we're dealing with the zoning map update. Michael, are you first on board? Oh, Doug, I'm sorry, Doug joined us. Great. Great to see you, Doug.
I think this is Dick. I think we're kind of like back where we were a while back. I sent Mike the list of properties that we had determined to be zoned certain ways. And he had sent the GIS map to me. Unfortunately, being able to figure out how to mark it was beyond my easy way to do it. So I left it to Mike to take what we had listed verbally as what we wanted to do and put it on the GIS map. Once that was there, then we could iterate it and try to turn it into the zoning map. I'm not sure, Mike, where you are on that task.
Yeah, so I went through, I have some stuff, and actually the link that's on the agenda, and I know there were some issues with getting into it. the documents that are originally there for the first map, that it was so large that it wasn't syncing online, but everything is in there now, but I'm going to bring it up on my screen so that I can kind of show you where we are.
You're going to share? That's great.
Yeah, I'm going to share just so everybody can be on the same page, or same screen. I guess we don't do pages anymore. All right. So hopefully everybody can see the zoning map.
Yep.
That is the current zoning map that appears to match what is listed in the the copy of the draft that's in the regs now, the thing that was just sort of inserted. I didn't go through, I went through some of the legal descriptions that are in the previous, that were the sort of previously adopted section as best I could. I went through obviously what we have here, and then I went through the notes that Dick sent me from your April 2018 meeting that you had, I think it was with John Bilczek. And what we have here, just give me one quick second, I'm gonna pull that up. So I kind of went through all of that and I outlined the changes and let me see. All right, so now you should see something that looks a little bit different. Can you see something different?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we do.
So, and I dropped all this in the folder so you can look at it later, but essentially the areas highlighted in green were listed in those notes as basically what you had thought would be appropriate to continue with the GC zone. And so those are this large parcel here, and then all of these parcels that are fronting on the north side of the road there. So I think my plan for putting this on the agenda today is sort of to give you this information. You now have access to it in the folder, and maybe, kind of looking at it so that moving forward we can have, more of a discussion. The other thing that I had mentioned to you before, which I have here, are these areas shown in orange around the Lake District. We have a significant number of properties that are extremely non-conforming in that they have not the frontage, the size, the area, they have nothing even close to what the regs require today, and it creates a huge issue for development and even something as simple as adding a shed. So my suggestion is that when we fix the zoning map, we also basically go through and consider creating lake districts to put people in a position where they do not need to, either forego property improvements or seek variances. I think that all but one of the variance applications that have gone before the ZBA since I started in Ashford have been for properties around the lake. And it's simply because the regs just don't work. So I haven't gone through and started crafting the basic goals of what this section would kind of entail, because I wanted to get some feedback from you guys. And while I have you I have you captive, I want to show you one more thing, which is also in that folder, to just give you a little bit of an idea, again, as we start to move through the zoning map. And this is a little bit different, but what I did was, can you see hopefully a Google map?
Yes.
Yes.
So I worked with the assessor, and I have a report which I ran for any parcel in town that is being assessed as what she would call commercial. So that basically takes out residential and then, farms, those types of things. And everything else is plotted here. You'll see on the left-hand side the categories of businesses, and some of the information you can find, if you click on some of this stuff, it'll give you a little bit of information, and you might be able to figure out what the business itself is. But I wanted to show this because it gives you a little bit better of an idea of where these uses are concentrated or not. So you'll see down here, we have got some apartments kind of concentrated in this area. Obviously, everything's along 44 and 74. But but I just thought it might be helpful for everybody to see kind of where these things are. And it's not perfect, but I just wanted to kind of leave you with that. And like I said, you have access to those documents.
That looks terrific.
Yeah, Mike, the document that was prepared by Michael Gardner, or, caretaken by him, it listed a number of individual properties that were zoned commercial. And they range all the way from going up Route 44 towards the Eastford line to going up 74 towards the road that goes down to the transfer station. And I think the general sense that we had with a document that we tried to get Mr. Filchek to put into the GIS system was basically 74 from the road near the transfer station down to 44, 44 from several lots towards, Terry's transmission, going all the way out towards the center of Warrenville, excluding Warrenville itself, because we don't want to allow any more commercial development in Warrenville beyond the Cumberland Farms. And then going back up on 44, past the Midway and up to the Eastford line. Most of that areas up there would be zoned commercial. The areas up near exit 72, most all of the properties on the road that goes parallel to the highway and the roads around the existing, it's now the manufacturing area. It used to be the stove shop. Those areas would be zoned commercial. And in the industrial up and around Ashford Lake, Ashford Motel. So I think being able to map those ones that were done individually onto the map that you've shown, I think would be a good first step. And I realize you don't have the knowledge of the nomenclature that's expressed on those descriptions. So, but if you make your best attempt, I can take and edit them if I've got some sort of GIS thing to work from.
Yeah, so the problem I run into is the way that NECOG created this map. Each individual parcel is not completely standalone and there aren't individual parcel polygons. That's a GIS term. And so what happens is it's hard. I can't just go through and click a bunch of parcels and have them change the zone, because the whole town was created basically as one, for lack of a better word, let's call it an image. So I'm having to do it manually, which is why when the size got so large, I couldn't send it to you. So I have that list of handwritten notes that you sent me, but I have what was in the existing zoning map. But I don't know that I have anything else. It's possible you sent it to me, but yeah, I'm happy to give anything that you want to try, or want to consider a whack. But at this point, I think the commission, because you never adopted that map in 14 anyways, it was a draft. So we have to go through the process anyway. So I think that for the purposes of the commission, just deciding what you think an appropriate zoning map looks like, that's where because I'm imagining some of you are new as well, would work. But if you have things that were already decided on, I can certainly make them part of what's proposed so we can start filling it in.
Yeah, Mike, a simple way to say it is there are a few parcels up around Lake Chaffee, in particular the semi-abandoned package store, the parcel on that same side of the road that's currently a field that was zoned commercial because at some point in time, someone wanted to put a wedding venue there. So it was granted a commercial. You know, Smitty's is obviously commercial. Going up towards exit 72, most of the areas around the old stove store are should be industrial, you know, not commercial. And you know, we had talked about doing those. We can talk about those in detail. Again, going back into Warrenville, the Warrenville City Center should not be commercial. It should be town center. So anything beyond the Cumberland Farms would not be zoned. So that leaves going up the hill towards the Midway and, you know, to the White House package store and Eastford. Most all of those areas up there would be zoned commercial. Most of the areas around, you know, the East Ashford, or I guess West Ashford, you know, 44, 74, those areas would be zoned commercial. And whether or not we extend some of those zonings, because the parcels go back, you know, quite a few feet from the road. At one point in time, there was discussion just to zone the first 300 to 400 feet next to the road as commercial. But there was at one point in time a proposal to put a whole shopping center in at the intersection of 74 and 44. So we shouldn't preclude something like that from happening, you know. So, you know, again, if you make a stab at it and something that I can easily edit, I'll try to put those things, you know, onto the map.
I think, you know, maybe what we do, and I don't know, tell me what you guys all think, but I can try to chunk the town up into sections and then maybe we can break it up into more manageable pieces so that the parcels are a little easier to see. We can kind of drill down a little more. And then, you know, we can take specific sections of the road. Maybe we can take, you know, 74 and we can take that portion by the highway and we can look at them that way and kind of go through them. Because I realize it's hard to see from the maps what parcels are what and then see what the uses are on the ground, what the buildings are. And so, you know, I'm trying to think of the best way to do it. I can't, short of giving you all GIS, which would cost thousands of dollars, and you know, I can't come up with a really easy way for us to say, okay, what do we think about this parcel? And okay, I'll click it and change it. You know, we just can't do it. So either we all get a bunch of markers or we split things up and kind of do it as a group. I'm open to anything. But I realize it might be a little overwhelming to look at the whole town and just by parcel shape, know what you want to do with them.
Could I say something?
Is that Valerie?
Yeah. I was just wondering if you could do like these separate regions that you're talking about. What about doing them on an overlay? So you wouldn't have to touch your map and all the detail, but you could have something that would be like on a see-through transparent piece of Mylar, not Mylar, but some kind of, they have paper you can see right through and have that you could just flip it down over to look at the overall, and then you could take it off, remove it, and look at all your details. I don't know.
Yeah, I have some ideas on how we might be able to do it. It's tough virtually, but GIS, had this been done and created correctly, GIS would be the solution. That's exactly, you know, that's sort of the virtual version of what you're talking about. But because we're all in different places, I'm trying to think of the best way. I have some thoughts on how we might be able to do it. I'm mulling around in my mind, but I need a little bit more time to figure out the best way to do it so everybody can have access.
Yep. Yeah, Mike, you know, socially distancing and all that sort of stuff. I can meet you at the town hall sometime with appropriate face masks and things. And we can kind of, we'll go over it on the table. And
Unless you're, Dick, unless you're doing it outside, access to the town hall is not open to the public.
okay. We can meet in the parking lot of the Milton Hall.
Well, if unless anybody's totally in disagreement, if you can give me till the next meeting to scratch my head and think about what the best way to deal with this, because I mean, we're going to be needing at some point, this is going to go to a public hearing, so we're going to have to set it up so the public can interact with it and know what's going on anyways. So, you know, I might be able to come up with something so that everybody can have access. And if somebody thinks this should be this or has a question. So unless you're in disagreement, I'm going to see what I can do moving the next week or two.
Mike, I didn't expect you to have a finalized version here or anything. So
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. I appreciate all your work on this. I guess my question has to do, you had shown us an earlier map, the not satellite map, but I guess it was a satellite map, with the indications of commercial, non-for-profit and things like this. What was the goal of that? Was that just trying to show us in a different format where things are predominantly in this town?
Yeah, so what we do is we create regs, obviously, in zoning maps of where things can be, but what the assessor does is she reflects what she sees when she goes there. And so whether or not a parcel is zoned commercial, if that's what the use is, she's picking it up as that. So what I wanted to do was show you a little bit of an actual how the businesses in town, how they're landing and where they actually are. So that if we get to a point where we're evaluating either where a map, what we need to change on the map, or if a specific use in, how we want to lay all that together, is there another zone that we need to create? We can use that map to kind of see what the composition of that area actually is, so that we don't end up with land uses that conflict with the zone that they're in.
Okay, thank you.
Suggestion, guys?
Yeah, Jeff? Can't hear you, Jeff. Can anyone hear Jeff?
No,
I can't.
no, I can't.
Who are the two people with phones?
He's
Hang
on
a second,
audio.
Paul.
Hear me?
Yep.
We can, you're, yep, a little better. Nothing now.
Must be a connection issue.
Yeah, he's
All right.
froze up.
My suggestion is that
There we go.
we hold. Yeah, my connection's terrible right here.
Why don't you try
my
turn off your
suggestion is
camera?
let's see here. All right, how's that? Is it
We can hear you.
better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm wondering if we should hold off on making any major decision on changing any zoning, changing this map until we can meet in person, sit down with that map and kind of talk about it in person. I know the Zoom thing is great, but it's lacking that personal connection that at least I need in order to have that discussion. It's a major impact to some people if we make changes and they're not in agreement with that.
And that's a question I would have is, what would the major impact be, Mike? If someone who is in a RA zone right now, their home is there and all too, and for some reason they also fall in what we start to deem a general commercial zone, the effect simply is on what for them?
It depends on how you set it up. So one way to do it would be, so if they are living in a residential home on a single lot and they get zoned general commercial, two things could happen. It's possible that their parcel becomes worth more because there's a commercial component to it now. But also what happens if depending on how the regs are crafted and what we ultimately decide, the single family use could become or would become potentially non-conforming, which would limit their ability to do certain things because they would be a non-conforming use. The way around that is to make single-family homes by special permit in that zone, so that
Acceptable use, yeah.
so that they're not non-conforming, and it kind of doesn't box them out. But yeah, I mean, one of the things we can do if we get further down the road is we can evaluate of the parcels that are subject to the change, how many of them are occupied as residential versus vacant. I can pull that information and we can talk about that and try to engage those folks if you feel like that would be appropriate. We can make them aware that there's going to be meetings and stuff.
Yeah. Take as a for example, there's a single family house kind of across from St. Philip's that at one point was proposed to be a doctor's office. It didn't come to be, and it was sold again to be a single family residence. I guess the question I would ask is, are we creating hardship for anyone who we would classify as commercial that happens to be using the house as a single family residence? At one point in time, one of the opinions that we got, I think, from council was unless it was used for commercial, it still would stay assessed as residential. It simply says that the intent of the town is that area would eventually be okay to be commercial. And the area that we're talking about is basically making commercial 44 and 74. Keeping non-commercial with exceptions at a few areas around Lake Chaffee on 89, non-commercial, and the other areas going south from 44 on 89, all non-commercial. So we're trying to make commercials just the areas where you would normally think about having something commercial. So, I would again go back to double check with the attorney to make sure that we're not imposing any hardship on the people that are living in those areas that are single family residents.
And just to go back, thank you, Dick. And to go back just to Jeff's point, Jeff, I fully agree that it's much more difficult for us to both share opinions and get the full gist of what we're deciding and what we're doing. However, my concern, and I know it's kind of it's taken us a while even to get to this point again, because we were at this point kind of a number of months ago, but we are open to challenge, if you will, because of the nature of the zoning map that we have, or not have for that matter, as Mike has pointed out to us. We do need to have something in place. And if I'd say keep having Mike move forward with whether it's the suggestions or the input and putting the pieces together to give us something to work with. And if we come to a point where we either just can't come to a consensus, or we feel that it's not in the best interest of the town to move forward with changes or anything, at the very least, come up with a draftable version, or excuse me, a actionable version of a zoning map that we can have in place and move forward from that, as you said, in future months when we're able to come together and look at these things. But I think we're biding time here by not having something in place that would not be challenged elsewhere.
Yeah,
So,
what we have
Jeff,
currently there,
my question would be, and everybody hear me?
Yes.
Jeff, my question would be, is there a chance that we could set up some sort of, maybe our next meeting, an off-site. I know the town offices aren't open. Could we set up something that would be socially distanced, meet all those requirements, where we could actually sit down as a group and talk about this? Because I think it's a really important thing that, we really need to get together as a group, as a commission, and talk about, and, look at the map together and discuss the impacts to some of these, property owners.
There is that potential. I started to wonder about that when you were asking the question, but I do know that the town is actually in the process of trying to form a town meeting because there's some items they need to move forward on. And they're looking to try and have a group town meeting, and I believe it's at the senior center, actually in the field and gazebo at the senior center, an outdoor Saturday morning type of thing, inviting people and such for that with votes and things like that. So the coming together is not, I believe, I'd have to confirm this with the selectman's office, is not a mandate from their executive order from the governor's office. They still allow, Wellington just had a town meeting, I believe over at River Road and such too. So it's nothing that stops us, at least from that standpoint. Whether individual groups have any type of limitation, I'm not sure. I just need to confirm that. But, potentially if we could come together in some large setting that allows for social distancing, I don't want to be out there in like mid-December or anything, but see maybe what we can find out for maybe next meeting and what Mike brings to the table.
Yeah, Jeff, Jerry Dufresne's not with us tonight.
I'm not sure. We've got two numbers here. Valerie had asked earlier.
Yeah, I'd like to know who they are because I can't put them in my minutes.
Yes, who is 966-3924? And if you don't you don't have to identify yourself, but if you're a member, it'd be a great thing to do. Okay, and I believe the 4275, is that still, oh no, Mark's up here. And how about the 208-4275? Okay, they are not required to identify themselves as guests.
Okay.
Thank you, Valerie.
So, just
Jeff,
one last comment. These are challenging times, to say the least, for everybody. So I think we owe it to the community to kind of think outside the box and kind of come up with, some sort of solution to how can we meet and discuss something that's this important to the whole community.
Sure, I understand your point, Jeff. Very good, thank you.
Yep. Jeff, when I asked about Jerry Dufresne, he's active in the Lakes Chaffee Association, and generally speaking, he's worked to make available Lake Chaffee Hall for meetings. So I'm sure that he could make that available for us if we thought that was appropriate.
Great. Okay, that's something we can look into and reach out to him. Also along those lines with what you were saying, and it came into my mind and went out of my mind again. Yep, gone. It'll come to me later. Sorry.
And I think this area is more urgent than we might realize because we basically have what's called spot zoning right now in place, which is
Right.
not looked upon very favorably by the state. And the state is getting much more active in terms of trying to take over regulation of planning and zoning commissions. So the better we can not be exposed to that, the better off we are.
Well, again, I think getting some type of map in place, again, whether we have the highfalutin one we're hoping to get put in place, or we have something at a bare bones that at least is drafted, voted on, and accepted, it shears us up. It gives us a leg to stand on. So, okay, Mike. So I'm sorry, Dick, you had something else?
If I can insert something that's related to this, the posting of the revised land use regulations that are on the town website lacks a title page. Mike, if you could put a title page that would put up the name of the land use regulations and the date of revision. It would make it more legal. The fact that there is nothing there doesn't give a evidence. And if you look at some of the ones on other towns, most of them list all the dates of revisions. So I think having hours of the last date of revision would make it more legal.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I didn't add it is because I hold on. I was having trouble. People were trying to print them, but with a title page, it throws off the numbering. So you are on page 47, but you're really on page 48. And so when they go to print from the website, the numbers were off. But let me see if I can finagle something.
Yeah, and I think for the sake of the printer ink and paper for all the members, it wouldn't be a bad idea for the town to print out an updated copy for everyone and send it to them.
Yeah, I think that depending on how fast or slow this moves and the fact that we're going to be accepting a text amendment application, we probably want to get through the codification process first just to make sure. But I agree that once we have a document, you guys need to have a hard copy for sure.
Right, and these are two major pieces, both the map and, the applied for amendment that we're going to be looking at. Okay.
So I will see if I can sharpen my pencil with the map that's proposed. If anybody has anything that they feel they want to send to me to include either previously, let me know. I'll see if I can come up with maybe some thoughts on a good way for us to all interact with this document in some way that makes it perhaps a little bit living. And then just for the purposes of trying to not have this take forever, would you guys be, I think the other thing I should do is potentially just rough out some basic goals and principles of what a lake district would accomplish, at least for discussion purposes. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Probably just off the top of my head, or the thing that I was thinking about, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
I was just thinking that it probably behooves us to bring in the Lake Association, their board, to talk with them as to, most recently I've gotten the pieces that, and I think I heard it in inland wetlands, that, zoning trumps Lake Association. However, it'd be good to have a blended agreement as to, what we're looking to implement, and does that meet the needs and the goals of the Lake Association?
I think when we were doing the plan of conservation development, I reached out to both Ashford Lake and Chaffee Lake, and frankly, the response was underwhelming. So I think we really need to reach out even more to them, because this does impact them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of motion. If you look at the real estate listings, like in and around Lake Chaffee, there are people that are claiming that, okay, I can take these 3 or 4 properties and, make them one, and I can build a house there. And that's not necessarily true. So getting something in writing that says what can and cannot be done in the lake districts, more importantly, Lake Chaffee, more so than Ashford Lake, is important.
I think that if we can come up with a draft, because obviously if we're working on it, we can't engage them unless we have a public hearing scheduled. So I think probably be most fruitful if the commission comes up with what they think is a good draft, that we can then schedule a public hearing
just got
on.
on just before, actually just a couple minutes after the meeting.
And that way there we can have a public hearing. We can hear from them, because I don't know how else we'd engage them. I guess we could have some type of informal, but really you need to have a public hearing to get that feedback. So, I think the commission should come up with a good first draft of what they think will work. But, you guys being the experts on how to create zoning regs, and then if there's things that don't apply, although everything that we're probably going to do is going to be better than what we have, but I think at that point we can engage them. And I I can reach out to to folks in those areas to try to let them know that we're going to be trying to, work with them on that.
With Lake Chaffee, Carrie Olson, who owns property on Lake Chaffee and who is also a land use attorney, she would probably be a good person to reach out to in terms of interacting with Lake Chaffee.
I just got a call from Jerry on the phone. He is listening in. However, he can't speak to us, I guess. For some reason, he's having problems getting into the meeting itself. So he did say that the hall is potentially available. He has a board meeting tomorrow night, and he will check to see if that's something we can start to arrange for our next meeting. So he's going to check into that. The Lake Chaffee Hall.
Okay.
It's behind the fire station at Lake Chaffee.
Right. Okay. Anything else on the zoning map? Okay. Very good. Michael, thank you. Dick, thank you for your input. Thank everyone. Next item on business is the text amendment application. And this is finally where Mr. McCracken is able to have some input and speak to us. Mike, would you say that the Lake District discussion has also been covered at this point? Or is there more to talk about on that?
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to kind of lay it out there and get it on the agenda so that people that are paying attention kind of know that we're discussing it. I don't have
Okay.
anything else
Okay.
in my notes.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff, and I
Yes.
would reiterate the importance of bringing Carrie Olson into the discussion because she's probably got the most to add to it that would be substantive.
Okay, great. I'll note that down. Okay, and the JP board. Okay, very good. So what we have is I printed it here. Here we go. We have the zoning application from Ashford Realty Trust, more so on the property owner, Gregory McCracken, company name Jacobs Walker Rice and Berry, having to do with a change to specifically, get to the end here, pages and pages and pages. So changes to the section, specifically Article 4D, Section 3, and Article 4D, Section 4, both areas dealing with the Interstate Interchange Development Zone, the IID zone. I guess, and this is just a point of accepting the application in. I'd asked if he's of a mind to Mr. McCracken to speak to us regarding the application.
Just in terms of a quick summary, I didn't expect more tonight than just the formal receipt, so that is true. But it's an amendment on various dimensional requirements for that particular district, just to, we hope, allow some development of property around the interstate exchange, which would be appropriate, but so far not possible just due to the existing requirements. So that's the intent. We can certainly go into it in detail at the public hearing, but for now, I'm just grateful for the chance to submit it and have it be considered.
Okay, very good.
Could you thumbnail version summarize the changes?
Well, the owner has held the property for quite a long time. It's in the aggregate, I think close to 100 acres, and he hasn't been able to do anything with it, but there has become an increase in interest in certain warehousing applications around interstate exchanges on I-84. And he has an interest in hoping to be able to do that, but the way the regulations are written right now for dimensional requirements, it's really not feasible. Plus the use isn't permitted. So this is just to open the door to the possibility that that type of use could be done around the interstate exchange and comply with the dimensional requirements.
For the record, we tackled the RA zone first with the intention of tackling the commercial zone and the interstate exchange zone after that, with the idea of making them more conducive to development. So we would welcome any ideas that you feel would make sense so we can go forward with looking at those changes.
Much appreciated. And certainly during the hearing, Mr. Rodolakis, who's the owner, or at least the trustee of the real estate trust, would be here to offer his input. I think he'll have a lot more of the functional detail than I will.
And just to thank you very much, Mr. McCracken. And just to let the Planning and Zoning Commission know, if you haven't reviewed this, one of the requests has to do again with Article 4D, Section 3, to include warehouse/freight movement as a specially permitted use in the IID zone. And the other has to do with, again, changes to 4D, Section 4, the table regarding structure size, lot frontage, and side and rear setbacks, with some changes, some requested changes to those dimensions, along with, for that matter, the identification of, we go up, in our regs, we go up to 250,000 square feet. There's a request for amendment to include something that gives requirements or dimensions for a facility over 250,000 square feet. And also in that table itself, the building height is a change from 35 feet to 45 feet. But those are, again, it's really an addition of a function in the zone itself, as well as specific changes to that table that is being requested. Did I summarize that correctly, Mr. McCracken?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Jeff, if I could just, a couple of things. I did send the application over to NECOG for review when we received it. We need a little bit of, I know you guys had talked about for the next meeting having it elsewhere. The problem we run into is the next meeting for this will be the public hearing. So we need to know sooner versus later, because I have to run the legal notice for this public hearing, and it requires for me to know where the meeting will be held. So it might be better to either do the in-person meeting as a special or push it to December, but we have to kind of know now how you want to handle this.
I think that will go, since that just came up, and this is kind of like been already in the works, if you will, for a plan. I'd recommend to the group that we go with the November meeting as a continue as a public hearing, Zoom public hearing, and then use, as you said, potentially a special meeting or a our December meeting, which will, if we get the December meeting in a building such as the Lake Chaffee Hall or something, we're not out in the cold like the town, then that will work just fine. I think that's the best way to go for us, especially with the time constraint and the crunch of a public hearing. Any other input from anyone?
Yeah, Mike, you're going to post the documents that are being proposed on that link on the agenda?
I think they're on there now, actually.
They are there, yep. So they are on there now, and so they will also hit on the next agenda. So if anybody does not have access or can't access the link, please let me know. It should work, but you should have a link to the map I showed you, the proposed changes, the current zoning map, the text amendment application that Greg submitted, and then the notes from 2018 that were given to me. So if you don't have any access, if you can't get those, please let me know.
Okay.
And Jeff, I would recommend what we do with this request is that we revisit that section of the land use regulations and revise it as such. So we do the whole thing at once.
Yeah, luckily it's not that large. Yeah, we have the potential to do that.
It's only like 5 or 6 pages long.
And what we're talking about here has to do with at least 2 or 3 of those pages, so that's fine. Yeah, we have the potential to do that and look at that.
So I hate to keep interrupting. So I submitted this text to NECOG for review. If
Yep.
we are going to change other text, there's 2 things we have to keep in mind. Number 1, I have to submit that to NECOG for review at least 30 days before. And number 2, we have a statutory timeline to act on Greg's application, so we don't want to get kind of between both. So
I understand, Mike, and I agree. I don't think we have the time allowed to make full-scale changes as you're identifying, knowing how long it took us to go through the other, whether it's 5 or 6 or 4 or 12 pages. So we do need to act on this as submitted for the hearing. If we have to go through it again or revisit it again later, I think that's, it may not be the most efficient use of our time, but it follows our requirements for what's being submitted.
And the only reason I mention that is because NECOG puts us on a 30-day hold. I need 30 days, and so that's quite a lag.
Yeah, Jeff, if we can't do the whole thing, we can do this special request and then make this our next priority for the revisions of the land use regulations.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so do I have a motion to accept the application?
To receive it.
To receive it, I'm sorry.
To receive it.
Thank you, Alex. To receive the application.
So moved. It's Janet.
Janet moved. Is there a second?
A second.
I'm seeking Jeff Schillinger. Was that Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Okay, so we have received the application. Thank you, Mr. McCracken.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure
I
Mike
will
will
get
be,
that on file with the town clerk too.
okay, and I'm sure Mike will be in touch with you regarding the hearing status and everything.
Fantastic. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the zoning officer's report. Michael, anything to report that you haven't already hit upon?
Couple of things, I guess, just worth mentioning. So, we've still have sort of the steady but not extremely crazy trickle of zoning permits. I'm working on a couple of complaints, one of which is likely to involve the building department and the fire marshal's office. So that's been a bit of a time draw. The zoning permit application is now online and fillable, so people can download it, type it in, save it, and send it back to me. So that cuts down on them having to make 1,000 trips to town hall. Also, I don't know how to mention this very quickly, but there's an upcoming legislative session. It will happen in January. There's an organization known as Desegregate CT that has gained a lot of traction. You probably have heard about it in the news. They are basically taking aim at zoning in Connecticut. And the fact that the traditional zoning practices have created a number of barriers for various cohorts of people in Connecticut and made housing unattainable in many places. There are
This goes along the lines of low-income housing.
in some, yeah, a lot of it has to do with making housing costs lower.
Yes.
There are a number of towns in Connecticut that expressly prohibit multifamily of any kind. But the long and short of it is they have worked very hard to gain a lot of momentum, which they have. And there was a bill proposed, which didn't happen because the session didn't, they thought there might be a special session. But a number of things are going to come forward and likely will result in changes to Connecticut statutes, potentially requiring that towns allow accessory dwelling units as of right. There are 10 components to their platform. You can go on their website and read it. It would require that commissioners on planning and zoning commissions go through training once a year. I think it's for a minimum of 10 hours or 4 hours. So there's other issues related to that, and talking about density and talking about limiting application costs, so that they are not seen as a barrier, creating various housing types, reducing parking requirements, standardizing permitting and public hearing procedures. They want to eliminate the this idea that you can evaluate the quote character of an application and how what they want to do may fit into the quote character of the town. They want to develop model zoning regs, cap fees, as I said, adjust traffic and sewer standards, among other things. These are their ideas. They're not legislators, so this is not the bill. But Senator Anwar wrote a bill which incorporates a lot of this. And I guess I'm putting it on your radar because there will be changes. I'm sure some of this stuff will make it through with affordable housing and some of the other things that have gone on. If you follow land use news, you'll see that in Woodbridge, a group of attorneys filed, are basically getting ready to take aim at the town zoning regulations because they only allow single family. And so they've submitted an application to the commission to build a multifamily home on a single family lot. And the goal of that is to take them to court if they deny it. So we're going to see a lot change. It may instruct what we have to do locally, but I guess I just want to put it on your radar.
Excuse me, could you called it the whole movement, desegregate what?
So the organization that's largely pushing this forward is Desegregate CT. That is the name.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go online.
And you also used a much better term than I did. It's affordable housing. Should have been the term being used.
We went through this at length when we did the plan of conservation and development. Ashford, and we've done a lot with the changes in land use regulations of eliminating all of the restrictions on lot size such that we can have a much smaller lot size. We also eliminated what we do in terms of duplexes on lots. We didn't address multifamily, but we did address in-law apartments. The real kicker with this is that of the 169 towns in the state, something like 90% of them are in non-compliance with what the state is trying to propose.
I believe that was like 130 out of the 169 towns, and that's just fodder. That's just, fresh fertile ground for potential lawyers and things to work with. So.
Yeah. And we, by and large, we actually have a lot of apartments in Ashford. If you go on Varga Lane and the lake out there's a lot of apartments there, a lot of apartments in the area behind the package store, not sure the right term for the area, but there's the condos and apartments there.
Ashford Park.
Yeah. So when we were doing this with John Filchek and company, we actually came up that Ashford was not in that bad a shape as far as complying with this compared to other area towns.
Well, it all depends. I mean, I'm looking right at the data you're talking about, and yes, the state wants 10%. Connecticut was running at about 11%. That was 5 years ago, and Ashford was at 4.4%. Not as good as Wellington at 7.85, but better than a number of similar sized compared towns.
Oops, sorry.
No, that's okay, Mike. Go ahead.
So that's Connecticut General Statute 8-30G, which basically says that any town that doesn't have 10% of their housing stock deed restricted affordable can have a developer come in and basically apply for a multifamily housing project, and they will not be required to meet zoning standards unless it deals with health and safety. And based on case law, you know, they don't really have to meet much. But this is more focused on what they call middle housing. This is the 2 to 4 unit, you know, single family style housing. But in Ashford, for example, you know, we allow duplex, but we don't allow a 3 family or a 4 family. So
Right.
this targets more of what they refer to as middle housing.
So
But
not an apartment complex, but again, not a duplex.
it's the idea that, you know, that housing styles in Ashford, if, you know, what the living wage is and how much housing costs in each town are, it's trying to make each community attainable so someone who works in the area can actually live there. I'm looking at the Partnership for Strong Communities and the data for Ashford, and 29% of homeowners and 10% of renters were determined to be cost burdened, which means they're spending more than 30% of their monthly income on housing, which they see as an issue because then mean they don't have money for groceries and childcare and healthcare. So they're trying to create a little bit of that diversity. Nothing's happened yet. It's really just an idea at this point, but based on the support that we've seen,
It's out there.
it's going to be something, and it will be instructive because it's going to happen at the state level. So we're going to have to basically fall in line.
And if you look at the preamble for each of our zones, it talks about preserving the rural character of Ashford, which means not having, you know, multifamily housing, etc. So
I don't know if it means that, and I don't know if a lawyer or someone with proper tools.
Well,
would be able to
that's
dispute that.
exactly what that is exactly what they're trying to say. They're taking issue with is that, you know, the fact that a 4 family, their thought, and I'm not speaking for them, but the idea that someone living in a 4 family home, maybe an old Victorian that's now 4 units, is going to ruin the rural character of any town in Connecticut is, in their mind, which they use, you know, it's a bit far-fetched. I'm not speaking for them. I'm not part of their organization. I'm just telling you that's their thought. And the fact of the matter is, and as someone who was there not long ago, it's expensive to live in Connecticut. And so they're trying to make sure they can retain folks. So I will keep you all posted with how that happens. The session is in January, so there's some time.
Okay. Anything else, Mike? Okay. Leaving that to that, I am looking for a movement to adjourn.
one question, Janet, what happened to your cat?
The one that was just here?
The one who was sitting over calmly over your shoulder there.
Well, she's asleep on the sofa next to me now.
Oh, be fair, Tom brought his dog, so. Movement to adjourn?
So moved.
Janet moves, seconded?
Second.
Second from Tom Hastings. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Thank you all very much for your attention and your perseverance